I know you heard me on the radio. Flexing. She loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K. I know you heard me on the radio. Flexing. She loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K.
Hello, all Night Watch listeners, Scarlet Knights fans. Welcome to another episode of Night Watch. I am your host, Larry K. We do have continued special series, mini-series, continuing to come out with our friend David Anderson. Today, though, I just wanted to touch base briefly on some weekend activities with Rutgers football in particular. Rutgers basketball did get another transfer. We will discuss Rutgers basketball when the roster starts to take a little bit more shape. But today I just wanted to touch on the spring game and how the spring went overall for Rutgers football. Ethan Kaliakmanis, starting quarterback, back for his last year of eligibility. Only played one series, was I believe 2 of 6 passing. Nothing crazy there, but nothing you didn't really necessarily expect. Ethan is entrenched as the starter. So all eyes were really on with a Johnny Shepard transferring out. And I liked a Johnny Shepard's game. I kind of thought the kid showed us a little something here and there when we did get to see him minimally. I was okay with him as the backup quarterback last season. But the writing from what we were told and what the reporting has long been was on the wall that A.J. Surace was high. The staff was very high on Surace. He came in as the guy that they thought was the future of the program. He was injured last year, so it was a little bit, we didn't get to see much of him. He wasn't the backup quarterback. Some say for that reason. Maybe some say because Johnny was a little bit older and AJ was coming in as a freshman. But all eyes were on Surace, and I was most excited to get a look at this young man in the spring game. Now, what can we glean from the spring game? Some will tell you can't glean anything at all. I'm kind of in the camp that, look, common sense is common sense. Basic human perception is basic human perception. We got 2 eyes, 2 ears. We can know what we see. And you can glean at least a little something from the spring game. We sure did last spring game when it looked like, Gavin Wimsatt was behind Ethan Kaliakmanis in terms of accuracy. That turned out to be true with Wimsatt, transferring shortly thereafter and Kaliakmanis taking the reins and doing a pretty darn good job with the Knights last year. So what did we see from A.J. Surace? Well, he went 15 of 24 passing for 220 yards and a touchdown. I thought he looked crisp. I liked a lot of the things I saw from him. He looked like he had good pocket presence. He looked like he understood the offense, at least with the basic offense we saw during the spring game. He looked like he, had accuracy. He could get the ball downfield. He could push intermediate throws. The touchdown throw was a nice one. Good precision with room to run. Gets in the end zone. Mike Higgins. So I liked what I saw. The future looks bright to me with A.J. Surace. I understand that's just one small thing, the spring game. But based on everything we've heard, and then based on that, it does seem good. Bodes well for our future with A.J., taking the reins at some point. So I'm excited about it. I liked what I saw. You could have seen something where, it was an okay showing and you just chalk it up to, hey, it's the spring game. He's a young player. But instead, what we saw was very encouraging. Nice pass down the sideline to Ben Black. And Ben Black looks like he's filled out a little bit from a physical standpoint. And remember, with the emergence of KJ Duff last year, you already have Ian Strong kind of entrenched. There was a whole lot of attention on Duff, and for, rightfully so. Excellent, kind of explosion onto the scene for Rutgers. You have these 2 Long Island receivers who are long guys, the old school, big-bodied receivers that we have come to love in the Schiano brand of Rutgers football. And Ben Black had some nice showings last year when he did get in the game, but with Dymere Miller going out there and doing his thing, Black wasn't necessarily emphasized as much as, the talent and the ceiling might have indicated to us. Well, he looked good on that pass. He looks like he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. And having other receivers there, it can never be a bad thing. I think wide receiver is quickly becoming a strength for Rutgers football right now. Vernon Allen III is a name we should remember. Vernon Allen III catches a pair of long, intermediate passes, 20-plus yards from Surace. And I think when you look at the wide receiver room, it's something to be excited about. These guys are younger. I know Ian Strong is now a junior, but he's only a junior, not a senior. And these other guys are much younger, sophomores and freshmen. And they look like they have a ton of potential. And it's nice to finally be able to say for the first time in several years, starting with last year, that we have a quarterback who can actually get the ball in the hands of some of these talented wide receivers. Now, you're going to see, and we saw it last year to some extent, where Athan Kaliakmanis and Kirk Shiraka, they had to open up the offense, and they had to throw the ball. And it added another dimension to Rutgers that really benefited us. And I still think we could have snuck out another game or two, and I'll talk to Mr. Anderson about that, and we've talked about that. But, we needed that last year. Kyle had some injuries, and then we just needed it to get teams off balance. Well, now Kyle Monungai gets drafted. He's gone. And I am very confident in Raymond and Benjamin and these other guys to step up. Gurrier, I'm excited about these running backs, right? But it's a different dimension than when you had, a leading rusher, one of the best running backs in the conference that you could lean on, who was almost always going to get you 1 or 2 yards a carry, no matter how hard it was. Losing him and now relying on younger guys, with maybe a little bit different skill sets, you're going to have to open up the offense, and you're going to have to make use of these receivers. And it's nice that we have a quarterback who we are confident in can get the ball to these receivers. You still have Fama Toure as well, who, by the way, won an award. And I understand we're going to talk about his brother in a second, but he won the Mark Mills Award, Second Effort Award, for the most improved offensive player. And he had a decent amount of fanfare coming into the program, and we saw him here and there in the spring game. We saw him get some reps, but he didn't really emerge last year and seemed like he might have been surpassed by some of these other guys. Getting the most improved offensive player award shows me that I think he might be a bigger part of the offense. Now, in the spring game, he goes down early. I think Al-Shadi Salam was in coverage, and he looked like he was kind of really involved in the secondary. And remember, he had switched from running back, and we lost a ton of secondary players, obviously, in Robert Longerbeam. Obviously, Max Melton went the year before. You lose Shaquan Loyal as the safety. You lose Eric Rogers. So you're going to need some depth, and you're going to need some players in that secondary. It was nice to see Salam kind of all over, but Fama Toure gets hurt. Looked like he might have hurt his shoulder. I'm hoping he's okay. We obviously have several months to go before the start of the regular season. So you hope he's okay, and winning that award shows you that the wide receiver room may be even more strong than we initially thought, which is good news. Zaire Angoy won the most improved defensive player. We're going to need to see improvements on that line, especially with what we're seeing with linebacker. And defensive lineman DJ Allen wins the Frank Burns Award. So outstanding mental and physical toughness. That's stuff you want to see. You saw Moses Walker, I think, getting his nose in there on several plays, hitting the gaps, maybe a bit improved. I haven't watched the game in depth, but we'll talk to, David Anderson and some other people about that, and I'll take another look at it to see how well the linebackers were in general. Sam Robinson, entering his second season, he showed out a little bit there. We're going to need good play from him, and we're going to need good play from Jabome and from Moses Walker. And if it isn't Moses Walker, whoever else steps up into that role, given the fact that we received some disappointing news at the end of last week that Mo Toure is transferring, entering the portal. Now, in my opinion, this is one of the reasons that I just get so frustrated with the current state of college sports. It's not that Mo wanted to go out and take care of his family and seek, maybe a higher payment this year. It's the way that it goes down. He gets injured before last season, and that was his second serious leg injury. And the team takes a serious blow because of the leadership he brought to the table, because of the dynamic playmaking ability he brought from the linebacker position, and it changes the way that Rutgers defense is going to function altogether last year. I told you that, in Schiano's press conference when Toure was down, you could tell that the team had taken a serious blow. The defense was not at the level that we were used to last year. That was one injury. There were several other injuries. We went through ad nauseum on this show, what we thought about that, the fact that Greg kind of was starting to plug holes and plugging holes on the fly without any grand direction or strategy. He eventually tore it all down during one of the bye weeks, and they were able to, re-implement a defense that got us back a little bit in the last 4 games of the season, but still nothing like I think a lot of people anticipated. And the offense was pretty good, so it was kind of disappointing. But one of the things we're hanging our hat on last year is, well, hey, at least now that Mo can't play this year, we're losing all these guys along the defensive line and in the secondary. At least we're going to come back with Mo Toure next year, which we hadn't initially counted on, right? And then as the season's winding down in 2024, we get an announcement from Mo, right? It's not just going quietly like we'll see, we'll weigh our options, we'll see what's going on with the injuries. We get an announcement from Mo. I'm coming back next year. I'm returning for my last season of eligibility to the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. And this is a team that developed this young man. This is a team that kind of got him to the level he is. And now he's announcing to the fan base, to the university, hey, I'm coming back. I'm coming back to see what I can put out there on film, what I can put on the field for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. And you can count on me next year. And everybody's just counting him in as a Rutgers guy, a leader, somebody who's going to return. And then right at the end of the transfer portal window, and I know there's some confusion, since he's a grad transfer, he already got his degree. And look, whenever a young man gets their degree from Rutgers University, they are an alumni. I said this with Paul Mulcahy. I said this with Cliff Amori. I'll say it again and again. You spend your 4 to 5 years at this university. You walk away with a Rutgers bachelor's degree or higher. You're a Rutgers dude. You're an alum. You're going to get some level of respect from me, forever. And I'm glad he got his degree, and I'm glad that he was able to matriculate here as a Rutgers student and a member of our community. But right at the end of the transfer window, whether he could have, transferred after that or not is somebody in the comments give me some clarity, because he would be a grad transfer. But right at the end of the transfer window, when Rutgers thinks, okay, we've absorbed all the departures that that we kind of expected, some of them maybe a little more of a blow, but we kind of know who left. We know what we have, and one of the things we have is this super senior leader who, when healthy, can really add a dynamic element to our defense, and we got him. And then the last week of the transfer portal window, he puts a tweet up saying, thanks for everything you've done for me, coach. And I'm paraphrasing, Uno is out, number one, I'm out. And then he takes it down, and there's speculation, is he going to stay? It seems like Rutgers probably fought to keep him, but maybe the outside forces, whether that's people in his camp, whether that's schools that are offering him more money, maybe that's somebody in his ear, I don't know, an agent or something. He all of a sudden is teetering, and then, Friday we kind of hear, look, he's probably gone. And sure enough, then it gets reported Mo Toure is entering the transfer portal. Now, there's a lot of speculation out there. Is it Miami? Is it, Syracuse? Is it dreaded Penn State? If it's Penn State, I think some of that goodwill for getting the Rutgers degree and all that takes a blow. That's just me being a fan. Not as a personal thing or a man, but as a fan, that takes a blow. You go to Penn State after leaving us high and dry at the end of the transfer cycle. Now, there's a lot of, Rutgers fans tend to do this. I guess every sports fan, oh, well, he's not going to be healthy anyway. Well, coming off 2 injuries, somebody's going to overpay. That's their problem. Maybe. Maybe he doesn't come back the same player as he was. But if he does, or even if he's, 75% of what he was, and he brings leadership and a certain level of emotional heart and charisma to the team, that's a blow for Rutgers. Especially a Rutgers team that is still trying to find its footing with a tough schedule coming up, with a veteran quarterback and what I think is going to be a solid offense, although you lose a pillar at left tackle. You're going to need your defense to be much improved over last season, and you lose that piece any way you slice it, it's not good for the Scarlet Knights, and it's disappointing. And that's one of the things about this new era of college sports that bothers me. If you're going to transfer and you're going to do it with enough notice, and maybe you have to sit a year. I know these rules are long gone, but leaving at the last minute after the spring closes, and Rutgers has spent all the time counting on you that you're going to be there, the rehab, the investment, everything that's happened, and then at the end of the cycle, you say, hey, I'm out, and you might go to a rival, hopefully not. But anywhere you go, it's just a disappointing aspect of college sports. And for the fans, it's hard. I understand for the players, it's great. But for the fans, it's difficult. And it's a tough loss. And it just is what it is. But speaking of tough losses, let's talk a little bit more now about pleasant losses, right? Good news for Rutgers, for the community, and for some of the kids that went in the draft this past weekend. Now, this draft, I got to be honest with you. You had the New Jersey Devils kind of fighting for their life, winning the first game at home and then losing the second. You had a lot of other things going on with me, and for some reason, this draft didn't attract my attention as much as previous drafts. I really don't know why. I don't know if that's a me thing or an overall thing. There's a lot of pageantry with the draft now. Obviously, there always has been, but the draft used to be in New York, and maybe I'm just becoming a crotchety old man. And let me know. Maybe I'm becoming. By the way, I turned 40 last week. Maybe I'm becoming a crotchety old. I mean, actually, 2 weeks ago, I think. I'm losing track of time already because my memory's going. See, I turned 40 this month. Okay, April, and I am. Maybe I'm becoming a crotchety old man. But it used to be in New York, the NFL draft. Every time it was pageantry, but it was the weekend, and it was a fun weekend, daytime thing. Then it was like, okay, we'll do the first and second rounds, on a Friday night, and then we'll go into the weekend. Now it's like the first round Thursday, the second and third, and and we're gonna tour it around the country. And now these guys that they're drafting are already getting paid a ton of money because college football has opened the floodgates with this NIL funding, and they're already getting a ton of money. The guys at the top level, it's still exciting. But then when you get to the mid to late round, some of these guys, especially the undrafted free agents, they might be getting the same or less than they were getting in college. It's just not the same zest, in my opinion, where the guy's like, wow, I went through college, I got a degree, but now this is the life-changing money. This is the life-changing fame. This is the transition from amateurism into having an agent and being a pro player and all these things. That's kind of not the same leap. So for some reason, the NFL draft didn't have the same zest. I could be alone in that. And you guys are all sports fans, so if you love the draft and you had fun, that's all that matters. That's just my personal opinion. You don't have to agree with what I'm saying. But it didn't have the zest for me. And then Shedeur Sanders, that whole fiasco of falling, deep in the draft, there's plenty to dissect on that if you're an NFL fan, whatever it is. I thought it was interesting, to say the least. There's a lot of dynamics at play. Then you had the prank call. There's a lot going on there. I can't wait to discuss it. I'll probably do it more on my pro football channel. But, just kind of a weird draft. And then what got me the most, I think, was I was watching it. I didn't expect anybody to go in the first round, obviously. Didn't expect the second round. But as the days wore on, and I didn't see, we had a decent crop. I think we had guys like Max Melton and other guys the previous couple of years who had a chance, to make a team and make some noise. But I thought this was Schiano's class that really fully reached maturity and was, that word again, matriculating, for lack of a better word, up into the pro ranks, up into the NFL. And this is the first year I thought we had a really, really, really solid, not just one or two guys, but a solid group of guys that could go to the pros in some way, shape, or form. And I just thought I'd hear names a little earlier. So going so late into the draft, not hearing Rutgers guys' names, kind of got me even more kind of like, come on, what are we doing, right? But finally, at long last, we did eventually get Robert Longerbeam, who was high up on Mel Kiper's best available for a while before he went. Goes 6th round, pick number 212 to the Baltimore Ravens. Congratulations to Longerbeam. If you're talking defense and you're talking tradition and you're talking a good place to go, Northeast, ferocity and whatnot, what better place to go than Baltimore? I think Robert, he's got a good skill set. He's going to make his presence felt. And let's not forget where he hails from, down that way, right? So cool story for him to wind up with the Baltimore Ravens, kind of in that wheelhouse. And I'd love for him to see success with Baltimore, especially given his history, and then coming to Rutgers, being a Rutgers man, coming all the way through. That would be an awesome thing for him to dominate down in Maryland. And it would be fitting, right? Remember Schiano with the whole flying down there and trying to stop him from going elsewhere and all this stuff. It would be really cool to see him succeed. So I thought that was a good landing spot for Longer Beam. Keontae Hamilton, 7th round now, pick 224, goes to Houston. Houston, obviously, good quarterback situation down there. Going to need the defense to step up, going to continue to build what they have going. Nice spot for him. And then I really thought Kyle Monangai might go a little earlier, but it just shows sometimes that Rutgers, I don't want to say Rutgers doesn't get the respect, but there was something going on this particular draft that I just wasn't digging about the way our players were looked at. But look, Kyle goes to the Chicago Bears, pick number 233 in the 7th round. He does get drafted. Anybody who's seen Kyle Monangai knows and has followed his career knows he's consistently, up until he achieved the heights that he did with Rutgers, and members of the Big Ten, I'm obviously a member of the College Huddle, members of the Big Ten that I've spoken to, other fans, other journalists, have taken notice of Kyle Monangai in his last 2 years. But coming out of high school, his teammate, Jalen, had a much more, everybody was hyping him up with his high ceiling and all these other things. And there were some who said, well, watch Kyle Monangai. And I was somebody who early on in his career, when he would get a few carries, saw something even, aside from what people were saying, good or bad. I saw something, the way he carried the ball, the determination, how ferocious he was with the ball, how he hit the holes decisively, and how he was even able to cut back when he needed to and then find another hole decisively, quickly. And then his pass protection was just beastly once he developed into it. And obviously, ball security, huge thing. He's just the type of running back who, with his intangibles and his hard-nosed ability to run, you just don't see that all the time, especially in the modern era. And I think Chicago is going to be in for a very pleasant surprise, if you can call it that. Maybe they knew what they were doing. It's going to be a nice thing for them, okay, to see him develop. And I expect him to do well in the league. I don't know, to what heights, to what end, but I think Kyle Monangai is probably going to be somewhat of a steal in that draft because he brings intangibles and tangibles to the field that you just don't see. And, for somebody who led the Big Ten and somebody who made such an impact in a conference like that, to go that low, I think the team that picked him up in Chicago is going to be very heavily rewarded for what they did. Desmond Igmanosin, undrafted free agent, goes to Baltimore, joins Robert Longerbeam. They bring a little bit of that dark side defense to Baltimore. Good fit for them in general. I thought Igmanosin had a lot of promise earlier in his career. About mid-career, he was an impactful player. Towards the end, especially last year, I don't know if he was fully healthy. I thought there were some issues there. So we'll see what happens. I wish him the best of luck. I hope he's successful with Baltimore as well. Shaquan Loyal, been one of my favorites. Stalwart, really, in the back there for several years. He was a starter, I think, from sophomore, junior, and senior year. Just like a guy who, even when he got knocked around, he had an injury, a bump, a bruise, he was always reliable, always playing, knew his assignments, knew what he was doing, and was somebody who was just a perennial starter for Rutgers. Now, were there times with, certain plays to the outside and certain things that Loyal, wasn't optimal in some situations? Yes. Those were, maybe some people realized, okay, Loyal's probably a player that's going to the league, but he might wind up getting, being an undrafted free agent. But a guy like that from West Side in Newark, what he's been through, what he's brought to this team, single-handedly saved us from a Temple loss, really, a couple years ago in Philadelphia, which I was at that game, and has just been a consistent perennial starter. Those are the guys that you want to see go to the league and get their shot, right? If you come to Rutgers and you're a perennial starter and you're a reliable, vital piece of a Rutgers team on either side of the ball for that many years, you want to see a guy like that get the respect he deserves and go to the league. And I think Loyal's going to do well. I think Cincinnati, from my understanding, really didn't take many secondary players this draft, so he's one of the freshest guys they have and one of the few young players they have in that secondary. Loyal's a hard worker. He's a reliable guy, and he brings an element to the table of understanding the defense, being a strong player and a hard-nosed player. I mean, the way he hits sometimes, the way he gets in there, causing turnovers. He's done several times, been, Rutgers guy in that sense with the turnovers, opportunistic on defense, creating plays that way, getting in there, not afraid to get close to the line and make plays there. He's a dynamic secondary player, and I think he's going to do well too. So it was awesome to see Loyal go to Cincinnati as an undrafted free agent. Tyreme Powell goes to New Orleans, undrafted free agent. Tyreme was probably on a trajectory, a really high trajectory, I think, before the two injuries. In 2023, he had the two injuries, the first injury on the field, and he has another setback, and we heard from Shiano last year that it seemed like, and there were rumors, Tyreme was playing through injury and through pain, and there were some times where even he had to say, like, is Tyreme playing at this level, like, good, or, because, and it probably was, because Tyreme's such a dynamic player with a lot of ability and a wide-ranging skill set, but I think Tyreme's draft stock was hobbled a little bit by his final season with him being injured. And that's another player where I think New Orleans and taking him as an undrafted free agent is going to be rewarded. He's got a lot of upside. I don't think he realized his full potential as last year because of the injuries. I think had you set those injuries aside, number one, that Ohio State game might go differently because he might be there to set the edge, when the running back breaks out and goes for a long touchdown that kind of took that game away when we were in it. And number two, I think you see him continue his upward trajectory and continue to increase his stock value, his draft value, I should say, and continue to develop as opposed to trying to battle injuries just to get back to where he was. And I think when he's fully over those injuries now, he's had a lot more time to do that. I think he's going to have a good time in the NFL, and I think teams are going to be rewarded with his skill set. We'll see what New Orleans does with him. And remember, these undrafted guys, they're going to teams, they're taking their shots, and either they make that team or there's a chance they wind up on that team's practice squad or they wind up on another team's practice squad because they're putting film out there. So once you get in there as an undrafted free agent, there's still a lot of opportunity for you in the league one way or another. These guys are young. These guys have upside. I'm cheering for all of them, and I think they've all landed in decent places. Perhaps none other than Holland Pierce with the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia notoriously spends a lot of time on their lines, both sides. It's really been dominant. It's part of the reason they're Super Bowl champions. It's made them perennial contenders year in and year out. A little disappointing that it seemed like Philadelphia, based on the reporting I've seen, Philadelphia wanted Holland, but then they still went on to take two tackles later in the draft before him. But then on the other hand, apparently they spent a large chunk, almost like a huge majority of their money, their undrafted free agent money, on Pierce. So they clearly wanted him, and they wanted to dedicate as much money as they had to get him there. So they clearly wanted him. It's just in that group of all those guys, is Holland going to stand out? Is he going to make the team? I hope he does. I think he's more than capable of doing it. This was a guy who came in vastly underrated, got himself into shape, made himself, again, a perennial starter with Rutgers. There was no doubt he was going to the league. I thought he'd be drafted, quite frankly. Little interesting that he wasn't. But he's going to go to Philadelphia. He's going to get really good coaching at Philadelphia. And, whether he stays on with them, makes their practice squad, eventually ascends the depth chart there, or whether he gets that good coaching, puts things on film, and then gets an opportunity elsewhere, I think Holland Pierce is going to have success in the league. They need guys of his size. They need guys of his ability to consistently increase his skill set and whatnot. And I think he's going to do well. It's a good landing spot. It's a good team. They've got good coaches. It's just a matter of, hey, can he set himself apart? I think he can. I hope he does. Decent landing spot for him. Eric Rogers goes to the Los Angeles Chargers. Dymere Miller to the New York Jets. I can tell Jets fans, I know you're going through a weird transitionary period. Things have been really weird in New York. Just let's say, really weird. Dymere is somebody who is I think he's a good route runner. I think he knows how to find spaces in the defense. At the NFL level, we'll see. But he stays in Jersey, and Dymere gets his shot there, and I think that's awesome for him. He came here as a one-year transfer. I think he gave us a lot in terms of, being a security blanket for Callie McManus, and even, a guy who was the go-to guy several games. He created a lot of, there was a lot we could do with him all over the field last year. And so it's great that he's kind of ascended, came to Rutgers, made a name there, and now gets his chance in the NFL with the Jets. I'm rooting for him. And Austin Riggs winds up with Minnesota. So even though it was a slow start with the draft, and I was a little disappointed at first, I'm happy that these guys all landed somewhere. I do think, again, that this was a talented class from Rutgers, and I truly think when the dust settles, maybe not all the guys, but I think that when the dust settles, you're going to see a significant amount of these guys, a handful of these guys, make an impact in the NFL. And I think that's the first of many classes under Greg 2.0 that we're going to see that. And that's getting back to where we had reached in 1.0. Yes, we didn't have a national title. We only had a share of the Big East championship, but perennial bowl contenders in bowls every year with guys matriculating through the university who are then getting opportunities in the pros consistently. That's a respectable ball program. That's what Rutgers wants. That's what I wanted. And I think this is the first of many classes where you see a handful of guys be impactful. Maybe the NFL thought they could get away with undrafted free agents and lower draft picks, which I guess these teams did. But I think you're going to see these guys make waves, and that's what we'd love to see with Rutgers. So interesting weekend for Rutgers football in many aspects. Spring game, I wish it was nice. I think 2 out of the last 4 years, we've had like a rainy, not so good weather spring game. It's nice when the weather's nicer, But anyway, I hope everybody's enjoyed that. Spring ball is officially over. We are going to get ready now for training camp. Before that, we are going to have on Night Watch more episodes of our mini-series, Embracing the Future of College Athletics with David Anderson. Also, The Ceiling under Greg Schiano. We're going to have part 2 of that with David Anderson. All of that's coming your way very soon. Thank you to all the new subscribers. And if you have not yet subscribed, please click that button. It's right here. It takes us just click it now. Just right there. Click subscribe. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers. We're so close. Thank you all for your support, for your comments, for your listener and viewership. Remember, if you're watching on YouTube, you could find us on any major podcast platform on the audio version. If you're a regular audio listener, please take the time to rate the podcast on whatever platform you use, whether it's Apple or Spotify. That increases our notoriety, gets more listeners, and continues to let me do more things with this show. So make sure you rate us on the audio podcast platforms. And if you're listening on audio, come on over to YouTube, subscribe. If you're a YouTube listener, you can go listen on your favorite podcast platform when you're driving to work, when you're at work, when you're doing chores, whatever you're doing. So thanks to everybody who listened. Let's go Knights. We're excited for another season, and we've got more content coming at you soon. Larry K is out for now.